Hi there. My name is Brettman, and I am with a organization called Businesses Ending Slavery and Trafficking, or BEST. BEST is based in the greater Seattle area. We're a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to educate employees to prevent trafficking. And we also assist survivors to gain employment. So I am thrilled to be here with you today. I have been working alongside the Port of Seattle for many years to support them in their efforts, amazing efforts, to work on preventing human trafficking in our community and assisting victims in our community. And so have had the privilege of helping the Port of Seattle create their strategic plan, to be part of several awareness raising campaigns, directly speaking to and reaching potential victims of trafficking, as well as develop training. So the Port of Seattle has two trainings that they provide, two online courses that they provide for their employees, called Ports to Freedom and Flights to Freedom, which they develop both for the maritime sector as well as for aviation. So BEST has been very excited to be part of this. And now the Port is on a new venture, which is to start a speaker series, to highlight voices from our community and folks who are working on trafficking in order to continue raising awareness about what's going on in our region. So I am thrilled to be able to introduce you to two amazing ladies. Joyclyn Bell is going to be our primary speaker today. Joyclyn is, I've known Joyclyn for probably around 6 to 8 months. Got connected with her because she has been leading work in our region down in Oregon and also in Washington, really involved in policy work. Joyclyn also recently was part of producing an amazing film that I hope she's going to be talking about today. And so I'm very excited to let you get to know her and hear about her experiences and what sort of led her to this point of being an advocate on behalf of survivors. And also, Nature Carter is going to be helping to facilitate the discussion and leading the conversation and asking the questions with Joyclyn. I have known Nature since 2011 or 12, more than a decade, because a mutual friend of ours said, you need to meet Nature. She is a woman she's on the ground doing the work on behalf of survivors, and Nature's has a beautiful, beautiful heart. She's been doing this work for decades, just advocating for survivors and serving their basic needs and making sure they're getting their basic needs met. So amazing leader in our community. So I'm going to pass it along to Joyclyn and to Nature.
Thank you, Mar. It's a pleasure to be here. Just a huge thanks to Business Ending Slavery and Trafficking, Commissioners Sam Cho and Toshiko Hasagawa, the Port leadership for allowing me to share this platform for the first Survivor Speaks webinar series. As we acknowledge the work that has been done to combat human trafficking, I want to uplift all the pioneers across the United States and globally who have been doing this work and who have made it possible for me to be here. And speaking of pioneers and work, I have my fellow queen supporting me today, Nature, who has been at the forefront of this movement on the ground, doing the work for at least 25 years and is a pioneer in her own right. And she's agreed to help support me in getting my message across. So thank you, Queen, for doing that. I appreciate you. And let's get started.
All right, all right. Well, thank you. That was a great introduction. And you're a beautiful smile as always. And, you know, this is not always an easy conversation to have, right? We're being asked questions, and sometimes it can feel like we're being interrogated. And so that way, just, having, just a one-on-one, conversation with questions infused in the conversation, I think it, help the process and the listeners to be, to be able to hear the message a whole lot different. So, with that being said, with the work, that you have, been involved in and what you've been doing, you know, um, blazing the trail. How do you see yourself professionally and personally in this work?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Well, I'd like to share a little about my lived experience to start off with. So I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington. Like was previously said, I experienced a loss of a very close loved one, my grandma, by the age of 5 years old. I had been molested, sexually assaulted at least 7 times by the time I was 11 years old. One of those times I was given money for my sexual exploitation. I experienced houselessness, community violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, and all the things that comes with growing up in a culture where prostitution is normalized. I can honestly say that some of my memories growing up was actually from living on the track on Pacific Highway in motels, most of which are now tore down, and around people in the life. I remember specifically just kind of walking, being a kid and seeing the planes go by, and saying like, one day I want to fly like that too. I want to join the Air Force. Things. I had goals when I was younger, um, but because of the way I was brought up, the people that I was around, the culture that was normalized, it's like my dreams got stifled. Um, to my understanding, I was in the child welfare system. I fell through the cracks. Um, in hindsight, the environment where I grew up, we were all groomed, both boys and girls, to either be exploited or to become the exploiter. Exploiter. Most people who look like me and some who don't can identify that when you grow up in certain environments, you either prey on or you become prey. And, you know, it helps me look back to one of the greatest gifts that my mom gave me, and that was my faith, my love in God. And so now I don't have to be prey. I don't have to prey on no one. I just stay prayed up.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Thank you for that. Because I know always being vulnerable and, sharing, a part of our past, sometimes folks can only just hear what happened. So let's give them something a little different, right? We've heard what happened, right? And where you're at now. So referring back to your lived experience, let's talk a little bit. Can you share with us a little bit about your education, advocacy, in your opinion, what should be, the primary focus as society?
Let me take off mute. Thank you. Absolutely. If it's okay, first I want to talk about like professionally, and then we could get to like what I feel like what I feel like should be the primary focus. I also want to state like my experience is just mine. It's my unique experience. It's not that of everyone out there who is in the life or been in the life. And so I just wanted to give that kind of clarification there. As far as professionally, it has been a struggle. Growing up on the streets, you learn to survive, you don't learn to live. So a lot of my experiences was like, not being able to meet my basic needs. And like panhandling, I did that in elementary and middle school. So like, yeah, very early on. So throughout my life, I held a lot of different jobs, some of them very good jobs, but I lacked the social emotional tools to stay in and push through. And even though I tried my hardest to not be in the life because I was raised around it, it just seemed to find its way back to me. When things went wrong and I needed to take care of my family, etc., I would go back to what I thought was normal, which was to be in the life. Through it all, school was my safe place. So it took me like 22 years and close to $200,000 later, I was able to get my master's degree in 2021. And during the process of getting my master's, I was able to walk alongside youth who had similar experiences. And that's when it really clicked for me what I had gone through. Like, I knew I had experienced domestic violence, I had witnessed sexual assault, community violence, all of those things. But like, it was just so normalized and ingrained in just the music and historically, that it was just, no pun intended, it was just nature. It was like the natural thing to do. And so as I started realizing what really happened to me, I was like, oh, let me share it with the world. Like, I'm liberated, I'm free. Let me tell everybody I used to be no, it made it really difficult for me to show up professionally. It was like, how should I put it? It made things harder on me due to the stigma. Unfortunately, that came from my own victimization, both within my community and society as a whole. And it didn't matter if I chose to do it or if it was out of lack of choice or if I was groomed by the culture, I was still a prostitute. And so in professional spaces, it just makes it hard for you to be able to do the work.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for referencing back to your experience professionally, too, because a lot of times, we could share our lived experience and that's the only thing people will remember. But I really want to highlight that master's degree, right? And how hard you work for that. So tell us a little bit about your struggle to success and in your educational experience.
Yeah. So education. So like I said, education was my safe space. And it was still hard within that arena because of my intersectionality, because of being a Black woman and a survivor. Just to kind of redirect your question a little bit, like, as a survivor, being at the intersection of being a Black woman and a survivor, it's been my experience that society pays more attention to people in the life if they're white or if their experience ends when they were sexually exploited as a child and they were able to get out or get away. But if you make it to be an adult and you stay in the life, it's like you're criminalized. And they don't even take into account what your history may be. So not only did I experience objectification, sexualization as a kid, I was also pushed out of school, even though school was my safe place at an early age, by circumstances and by school administrators, by their lack of being able to recognize my situation and what I was going through at home, or just because we had to move around a lot. I went to about 9 to 10 different elementary schools. So, that's pretty much what it was like for me throughout my educational process. It definitely could be better. My understanding is that in most spaces, in educational arenas, that it is often looked at as a way to go, to be able to provide for yourself, but no one takes into account the long-term impacts it has on your quality of life once you get into that arena or that field. It doesn't usually turn out good for either the exploiter or the exploited, and that's the low-level exploiter, not the long-time benefactors. It usually turns out very well for them.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So, looking at, just your experience overall, professionally, education, and your advocacy. As a Black woman with lived experience in education and advocacy, in your opinion, what should be our primary focus as a society?
That's a great question. You know, when I think about like how best the poor and just the communities that are at the intersection of violence are out here combating against human trafficking, all communities. I also have my unique experience, right? So with that, I want to just acknowledge that sex trafficking and human trafficking did not become illegal until like the year 2000. That means that we are way behind in trying to make positive change in the right direction. As a society, we need to change our mindset about human trafficking as a whole and recognize that you can't have the commercial sex trade without there being sex trafficking. Just like you can't have a workforce without there being labor trafficking. And the same goes for indentured servitude and debt bondage, right? There's always going to be an underside of it, the underbelly of it, right? So we need to, as a society, stop putting our own wants and needs before our youth, before our future. We are a collective, and the decisions we make impact our kids. If not our kids directly, it's going to impact somebody else's kids. So it's time we put the welfare of our youth before our own, because what two consenting adults do privately or in public spaces absolutely, positively impacts either you or someone else's kids. So, like, let's keep that in mind.
Yes,
And
thank
then,
you.
no problem.
Thank you for being vulnerable, right? And sharing not just your story, but also to your strengths, your assets, and your willingness to continue to stay on the forefront. So helping, educate us has been very therapeutic for me, right? Is there anything else? And I know for the listeners as well, educating us is also to empowerment. So thank you for empowering us today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
Well, there's a lot, but I'm gonna keep it short. Human trafficking is a byproduct of slavery. In fact, this nation's wealth was made literally off the backs and land of indigenous people and my ancestors. And you can't repackage it and sell it based off the fact that people can't meet their basic needs. So, with that, I'd like to welcome you all to the revolution against human trafficking. I was able to break my cycle, but I need everyone else's help to join me so that we can break the cycle for others. So no one has to go through what I went through, or anything similar to that. It's time that we put solutions at the forefront, and those solutions are situated within the problem. And that's the lack of basic needs, the lack or inability for people to meet their basic needs, a lack of adequate prevention, education, holistic wraparound services that not only supports the individual, but the family, the community. It makes it easier for the organizations that are there to support them and our society as a whole. Let's move to decolonize and put our youth first, then we all win. Let's create a standard of care of support for those that experience human trafficking domestically, and set an example globally that is not just a cookie cutter or individualized approach, but it's going to take us all to really break the cycle and create the change that is needed and that we want to see.
Well, I stand with you. I stand with you. Thank you again. Like, this has been an amazing process, right? And our conversation today and the takeaways that you have given everyone, is definitely heartfelt. So thank you again, Queen. Thank you.
I do want to add that I can't take all the credit for that. So I stand on the shoulders of those that have came before me. I am only here because of my ancestors. And we don't have to subscribe to the pathologization that comes from being in the life specifically speaking within my community. We can create research and we can create the services that our most vulnerable populations need. And then those services, that justice that we are creating, this revolution that we are starting, this movement, it will rise to everyone that needs it. And so with that, I like to turn it back over to Mar and thank BEST, again, the port, the commissioners, for allowing me to share my experience on this platform and the support of my queen nature as well.
Thank you so much, Joyclyn. You're just, it's amazing to hear what you have overcome in your life and moving on to get a master's and contribute so much to our community. It's just such a privilege to see that. I don't know that many people can overcome those kind of challenges, and you've done it. So it's really amazing. And I think you inspire others. So one thing I wanted to ask is, this is going to be online. So if a survivor or someone who's currently being victimized or exploited watches this and gets to hear what you and nature, you know, what you've done to overcome your circumstances, can you, what would you say to that person who's currently being exploited? What words of encouragement might you give them, either Joyclyn or nature?
You want to go first? Are you okay? Are you pushing it on me? Okay. What would I say to a survivor? I would say you are not alone. I would say that, and I'm gonna take this from somebody else. Find your tribe, find your people that's there for you to support you and to help lift you up. And you can slowly make the change that is needed so that you can begin to thrive and to live and to break your own cycle. Nature, do you want to add anything to that? Because you got 25 years on me. I'm new to this.
In nature, if you know of also resources in the area, so if somebody needs some help, they're in a situation of exploitation in our area, would you mind mentioning sort of a recommendation there too of how to find that tribe, like Joyclyn said? In nature, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm trying to take myself off mute. So I didn't want to take away anything that was being highlighted from what Joyclyn was talking about. You know, the movement is still relatively small, but I love what you said about as we continue to, you know, cultivate new partnerships and build, right, that this revolution, you know, movement will become stronger and more resources will be readily available. And so right now, one of the programs that is culturally specific to working with our marginalized communities is through the YWCA Seattle King County. And you can reach us at 425-428-3593, and you'll be guaranteed to get someone on the phone. And if not, you can text that number. We do have, you know, a call, text free. What is it? A call. It's a free call and text line. And I do not know the number by heart. Hold on, I gotta look it up. And you would think I would know the number by heart, but it's 877. Just one second. And you'll be guaranteed to get someone on that line and having that opportunity to really be able to bridge the gap and get connected to services right away. Everything is at no cost, and you're able to really like start the transition. Even if you just have a desire and you really are not for sure what your next steps is, I always say let someone else help you to make the next move. But one of the things that I will say, and I know that this is a, you know, global quote, is that, you know, any shot you take to freedom is the best shot, right? But if you don't take the shot, that's the missed shot. And that is, you know, and I'm kind of paraphrasing it, right? Because I don't want to, you know, mess up anybody's tagline. But that number, that 425-428-3593, guess whose number that is? That's my number. And I always answer my phone. I always answer my phone. And I can get you connected. So that's what I was saying.
I second that. She could get you connected.
Thank you, Nature. So yeah, the YWCA Seattle King County is an amazing program. Nature currently is involved in managing that program. And if you are outside of the Seattle area, then there is a trafficking hotline, which you can reach. It's at 1-888-373 7888. So it's 1-888-373-7888 is the National Human Trafficking Hotline if you're outside of Seattle. And if you see someone in the community and you think that they are being trafficked, if it is a young person, so someone under the age of 18, then please contact police. Go ahead and call 911, tell them what you're seeing, and that you may need some assistance, or this young person may need some assistance. And that you suspect they're a trafficking victim, please let the police know that, so that they walk into the situation understanding that this person may be a crime victim and not a criminal. Which is somehow how folks are treated, is that they're criminalized for the exploitation that they're experiencing. So if it is child being harmed or an emergency, please call 911. If the person is alone, and you can approach them and just say, "Are you okay? Anything I can do to help?" So if there's no trafficker evidently present, then go ahead and just ask somebody, like you would ask anybody else, like, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need something?" And if they need help, then you can give them the human trafficking hotline. Or Nature also just put that hotline in the chat for the YWCA, which is 877-757-8297. So that's a great local resource, or you can help folks call the human trafficking hotline if they want to call that. But if someone is with someone who is a clear trafficker, or being controlled in some way, do not get involved. That is not something the port wants you to get involved in. And it is a liability to you. It's also a liability. It could potentially cause harm to the person who's being exploited. So please don't get involved if you see a third party present. Then just call the trafficking hotline and let them know what you're seeing and any identifying characteristics. And if you are at the Port of Seattle when that happens, then I think you just call the Port of Seattle Police Department to let them know what they're seeing. And they are trained to respond to potential victims in a victim-centered, trauma-informed way. So yeah, so I think that is it for today. Joyclyn, Nature, amazing. Joyclyn, I loved your quote that society needs to recognize that we cannot have a commercial sex trade without having sex trafficking. And there can't be work in any industry without having labor trafficking, because traffickers will find ways to exploit people and make money off of the backs of exploited individuals. And so it's always trying to be aware as much as we can about what is happening, and being willing to reach out and help people get connected with the resources they need. So thank you, ladies. Amazing job. And I'm just so grateful for your inspiring stories. So thank you.